Yvonne Murray Larrier, and I am so excited. I cannot even tell you how excited I am for us to be launching our first Access Rheumatoid Conversation show. And this is a conversation that will inspire you to renew your mind and transform your lives. And with me today is this beautiful young lady, Vanessa Kelly-Brew, and she will just give you a little bit more information about who she is as she joins the conversation today.
Hi, so as Dr. Murray said, my name is Vanessa Kelly-Brew and I am a mental health therapist. I'm so excited to be here today with Dr. Larrier to have this very important conversation on the rheumatoid process. And this is a conversation I think that will be beneficial for everyone as we learn how to go from unconscious living to conscious living.
Awesome. Thank you. And again, welcome. And we have so much information to share with you, but more importantly, we want to hear your stories, and we're going to be sharing stories back and forth to help you, the listening and the viewing audience, help you understand the rheumatoid process and how, as Vanessa said, we're going to move from unconscious living to conscious living, as well as from inter and intrapersonal imbalance to intra and interpersonal balance. And so the goals, let's talk some more about the goals. What are the goals of the Access Rheumatoid Conversation show? The goals, Vanessa, are to inspire the audience, individuals, to style their lives optimally. We want people to live their best lives. And we also want them to learn how to use, we want to inspire you to use your social emotional skills so effectively in your everyday life as we live, as we learn, as we love, as we earn, as we play. Right? And so that's what we want you to do. Do you have anything to add to that, Vanessa?
Just that I think that, again, once you learn these things, as you said before, it will just help you live your best life.
It definitely will. And we've seen it, and we'll share some more stories with you. We'll share some stories with you on how you can use the rheumatoid process to live your best life. Okay? We want you to be fully engaged in this process. Fully engaged and intentionally engaged. Again, so that you can renew your mind and transform your life. You've asked the question, Vanessa, and I know I have asked myself the question, why am I here? What are some other questions that you've asked yourself? What are some other questions?
One of the questions that I've often asked is what is my purpose here in life?
Yeah. What is my divine calling? What else you've heard other people ask you?
Well, I will tell you one of the things that I often ask God for myself is, God, where are you taking me? Where am I supposed to go?
Right. Yeah. And so what we're going to talk about, we have those questions, and we're not superhuman. We are just like you. And so we know if we have those questions,
absolutely,
you will have those questions. Right. What we have found, though, is we have discovered that using the rheumatoid process helps us navigate the responses to these questions. How do we move from knowing that self-awareness of what our calling is, what our purpose is, what our assignments are? How do we move from that position to the position of actually now implementing the information that we've gained? How do we move from knowing the will of God, knowing the purpose in our lives, to let me do this now, right? And so that process is what we're going to be helping you navigate, right? By teaching you this rheumatoid process. And so we're looking forward to this journey, these conversations, because believe it or not, it sounds like, well, this is a show like a lot of other shows. But one of the things that is different about this Access Rheumatoid Conversations is that it gives you a 5-step process, which is the rheumatoid process, that anyone can use. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter your educational backgrounds. What else? It doesn't matter your gender.
Right. Your socioeconomic status.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't matter your, did we say, where in the world you are. It doesn't matter whether you have a PhD, a MD, or no D's. Right? As long as you can read, this is a process that you can engage in.
And I would also add, as long as you are willing to put the work in.
Exactly. As long as you're willing to put the work in, absolutely. And so and so our conversations around the rheumatoid process are going to be conversations that are grounded in everyday living, right? Everyday activities. And those everyday activities are the activities that what we call daily living activities. And we all engage in it. We all love somebody. We are all in relationships. We're all either working in some setting. It doesn't matter the setting. But we have some basic universal interactions that we all engage in. And what we want to help you do is to, again, as Vanessa said, move it from the unconscious to the conscious, and help you become the driver in the seat of your life, in the car.
Right.
Yeah?
Right.
Yeah. And so that's what this is about. And we have done it in a way that there are 5 steps. So it makes it easier to navigate. And you're the one who gets to be in charge of that.
Right.
We're just giving you the tools, and you get to then navigate that situation. Anything else you want to add at this point?
Yeah, I just like the fact that you said that they get to be the driver rather than just being a passenger in their lives and just going along.
Exactly.
So you are the one who gets to decide where you go.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And giving them this rheumatoid process empowers.
Right.
It's an empowerment tool. It is inspirational. It is life-changing. It's transformational. And it's also very engaging. It's culturally responsive, so that it doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter if you live in Madagascar or if you live in Michigan.
Right.
You are able, once you learn these steps, you get to drive your own car, the car of your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we're gonna move right into our topic for this
Session.
episode or session, right? This is the topic we want to talk about. What we want to talk about is the holiday season is upon us, right? We have Christmas.
Yes.
Just
came out of Thanksgiving holiday.
Exactly. And Thanksgiving in the US. And then we have Hanukkah.
Yes.
Today is, I think, the 3rd day of Hanukkah. And then we're going to have Kwanzaa, right? And we know that what we want to focus on is how people interact during the holiday seasons. What are some of the issues that come up, right? So we want to help people recognize, or become self-aware in the rumor time process, the recognize is associated with the social emotional competence or skill of self-awareness. So when we say recognize, we're talking about becoming self-aware. So we want to help individuals live their best life, and one of the foundational or fundamental ways of doing that is being self-aware, right? Being aware of your thoughts, your interactions, your mindsets, and your emotions. And that makes up the rumor time process, right? The time component. So we're going to recognize your time. We're going to help you recognize your time during this holiday season and how you interact with individuals. And so we were talking earlier before prior to the show, we were talking about what were we talking about? Help me.
Well, we were talking about the stress that can come about as we enter into holiday seasons, and the different types of stresses that people can experience.
Right, exactly. Thank you. And so some of those stresses during the holiday season are very specific, almost very specific to the time of the year. You find that at the end of the year, there's a lot of pressure at work, right? To finish reports or what are some other things?
And depending on what type of work you do, sometimes places slow down.
Yeah.
Which causes a lot of financial stress on people.
Yeah. And so then there's that. There's the slowing down of business. Also, some places may hire more, but then some places may lay people off because of the seasonal types of work. Then we also have, so there's that stressor for those in the workplace, and doesn't matter where your setting is. And then there's the stressors for students.
Absolutely.
Yes. Getting ready to go on a vacation, and if there's a lot of chaos in your home, and there's no other place, because school, and a lot of times school provides a safe haven away from the chaos at home. And so without there being any school, and you have to stay in that state of chaos for several weeks, is another source of stressor, and that creates stress for the parents as well.
Yes.
Yes. And so there's stress on every front, right? In every setting, people are experiencing stress.
Right.
And we want to talk about how the rumor time process, the recognized plot, and if you can let me pass the poster here. I just want to show the viewer, right? So that pen, let me, yeah, thanks. So this is the rumor time process here, and it's divided into plots and rows. And so we have, on the plots side, we have recognize, understand, manage, express, and reflect. And this session, this session, we're going to be focusing on recognizing your time. Remember I talked about that earlier. And your time is thoughts, interactions, mindsets, and emotions. And these, so we want to recognize your time that you have towards yourself, others, and situations. And what we're going to be talking about, the situation is the holiday season. Okay, so again, remember, the rumor time process is broken down into plots and rows. These are the plots and these are the rows. And this session, we're focusing on recognizing your time thoughts, interactions, mindsets, emotions that you're having toward yourself, others, and situations. And we're going to we're focusing on holiday season stress, okay? And stressors. How to recognize your thoughts as it relates to yourself and the stresses. How to recognize your interactions as it relates again to self, others, and situations during this holiday season. Then the mindset. What mindset do you have going into this season regarding yourself, others, and the holiday season or situations? And then your emotions. What are those emotions that you experience during this time as well? And so some of the situations that could occur, or we know from our own experiences, one of the ones that I can think of really is having to attend a lot of holiday parties. You know, attending holiday parties with people who, you know, you're not, they're not your favorite people.
Quite jail with.
Yeah, exactly, right? They're not your favorite people. And you know, my mindset is if I'm spending quality time with people outside of my home, they need to be people who I feel have my best interest at heart. And it's kind of difficult to do that sometimes when you have to attend some of these holiday parties. Because, you know, I know people like to say, oh, you know, we're a family at work and those kinds of things. I'm not feeling that. Okay, I'm just keeping it real, right? That is not, no. And so holiday season, holiday parties, you know, if I had to choose another place to be, I would choose that other place than to be attending a holiday party with people, and not necessarily in my context right now, but even in the past, it was not one of my favorite things to do.
Right.
And that was a source of stress.
Yes.
Because then how do you go attend these parties and be your best self? Right? And so it had a lot to do with, again, my thoughts, how I wanted to know how I could interact with people who I know really don't necessarily like me. And so it also had to do with my mindsets or my attitudes, and then what type of emotion would I show? How would I respond to that? What are some other I guess holiday situations that you may have been in?
Well, you know, I am a big family person, so family is very important to me. And we typically do love to gather together. But I will tell you, there have been some times when, you know, it's been stressful because of, you know, one thing or the other that may have occurred. So being in situations with, again, people whom you love, but there is like some stress there, and then how do you navigate that? You know? So on one hand, you love your family, but on the other hand, there's like some issues there. Could be some unresolved issues there. You know, and then how do you manage that?
Right. And so in this episode we're focusing on recognizing those stresses. Right. So we're gonna recognize that, which is again self-awareness, and we want to kind of give you a definition that we use for self-awareness. So Vanessa has the definition here.
The definition for self-awareness is the ability to accurately recognize and understand your emotions, thought patterns, personal goals, beliefs, values, and behaviors.
Okay. So a key word in that definition that we use at GC Scored and with the Rheumatoid process is accurately. The ability to accurately and honestly assess, right? Recognize and assess what your strengths are, your weaknesses are, what your triggers are. Recognize and accurately and honestly assess, what are you thinking? What are your thought patterns? Because your thoughts influence your behaviors. Your thoughts also, here's a philosophy that I subscribe to, that your thoughts are particles or elements that make up your attitude, right? And that those thoughts lead to the mindset or attitudes, which then influences your behavior or interactions, and that influences your emotions. Right.
Yes.
So what we want to talk about is during these times when you gather with your family, and I am having to go to these workplace parties. Yay! Let's talk about being self-aware, right? We're recognizing. So we want to be self-aware. We want to be aware of what are some of the thoughts that we're having, right? That's causing us to have these not so comfortable interactions, right? We're recognizing, right? Self-awareness is recognizing. What's our definition for recognize in the Rheumatoid process? We have our definition for recognize.
So the definition for recognize is to see, to identify, to admit, and to acknowledge.
Right. And so the process of seeing, admitting, identifying, acknowledging is becoming self-aware, right? Knowing who you are, looking at who you are honestly and accurately. And so with that in mind, what are some of the thoughts that we are having that's causing us to experience these relationships, and it doesn't matter what the setting is, right? I talked about work, you talked about family, you get-togethers, but what are some of those thoughts? What do you think?
Well, I think one of the thoughts that comes up is I think it's trying to brace or prepare yourself for the worst that could happen.
Right. Because every family and really every workplace has that person. Right? There is that person who is just not able to manage themselves.
Right.
They're not self-aware, and so all of their stuff just kind of just is everywhere.
Right.
There's there are no boundaries. They don't know how to manage. They don't even recognize, and it spills out everywhere on everybody. And so, like you said, you have to brace yourself for those kinds of individuals. So the thought pattern behind that bracing is, okay, what are they gonna do? What are they gonna say that's inappropriate? And so you're thinking, and thinking thoughts are the ideas or the pictures you have in your mind about this particular situation. And so so bracing yourself is one of those thoughts. I have to brace myself. I have to get myself ready for this
whatever
exactly.
it is, right?
Yeah.
Because as you said, you don't know.
Yeah.
You know, so it's
And that creates a stressor.
it creates a stress because sometimes you are on guard.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so you can't really relax because you're waiting for
The next
something to
the
happen.
next shoe to
Right,
drop.
right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right.
And so we so on your in your family situations during the holiday season, bracing yourself. That's the thought. That's the, I guess that's the pattern that is in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
For me, at the workplace is, I just feel like, you know, people are not necessarily genuine. And I don't like to be pretentious or inauthentic.
Right.
You know, and I feel like when I go to these events, I have to be something that I'm not. You know, and so the thought is I'm going to have to be fake
Right.
for a couple of hours. And that's hard work.
Right.
That's hard work, and that's stress.
Yes.
Because I'm not myself.
Right.
I'm not my full self. I'm not living in my full, you know, truth. And so there's situations in life like that, though, right? That's what. So those are some of the things. So those are some of the thoughts that come about when we, especially during the holiday season, with get-togethers, whether it's workplace, you know, colleagues at work, whether it's family members, or whatever situation you're in. So those are some of the thoughts that come. And what we want to know is, you know, in the comments box or on Facebook, on our Access Rumor Time Facebook page in the community there, you tell us some of the thoughts that you experience. What don't you think? It would be good to hear other people's.
Right.
What are you thinking during the holiday time season when you have to attend different events? Let's describe some of those thoughts for us. It would be interesting to see some of the commonalities in terms of what people are thinking.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I tend to think that these are very common issues that people experience. The workplace gathering or the family gathering where there is a lot of tension. So as Dr. Larry said, you know, it would be interesting to know what your experience has been and how you've been able to handle that. What have been your mindsets, your thoughts about these situations? Right.
So we want you to share with us your thoughts. Okay, so that's the first row, right? So we did recognizing your thoughts.
Yes.
So now let's recognize interactions or behaviors, right? Interactions or behaviors. What are some of the behaviors that we see at these gatherings? All right. Some people get stone drunk because of the same feeling of, I don't want to be fake. I don't want to be inauthentic. I don't want to feel uncomfortable. And so how do they behave? And some people just get drunk so that they don't have to experience that discomfort. But I don't get drunk. But what do? I may not even go. And if I do go to that event, I may stay a little while. Not a very long time, right? I will stay, you know. What are some other things what are some of my other behaviors? Recognizing my interactions. I will find people who look, or maybe people who I may say, you know, a regular hi to at the office, and kind of gravitate toward them more. Or another thing that happens a lot now is you get on your phone.
It's easy to hide behind your phone. Yes.
Yeah. And so that's another interaction. That's another behavior, right? So remember, we're recognizing our interactions, we're recognizing our behaviors, because we're to help you get to renewing your mind and transforming your life, and to help you move from unconscious living to conscious living. We first have to recognize, we first have to identify, we first have to admit to, we first have to acknowledge what our thoughts are, our interactions, our mindsets, and our emotions are as they relate to ourselves, others, and situations. And the situation that we're talking about in this episode is the holiday season events and activities.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So those are the interactions that I can think of in terms of when I have to attend an event that I'm not most comfortable in. Those are some of the behaviors that I can recognize in myself. What are some that you recognize in yourself or maybe in others when you are at one of those events?
I think one of the things that you mentioned is something that I also find myself doing, and that is I look for others who are doing, what I'm doing.
Right.
And that makes me feel a sense of calm, and away from the stress. And so I may also, depending on if alcohol is
available.
Well, no, I'm not a drinker. I'm saying depending on whether or not alcohol is an issue here. If someone else has been drinking maybe a little too much, depending on who it is, I might, like, hey, are you okay? And depending on how it's received, I may then move away and then gravitate to somebody else or some other corner.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So those are some of the behaviors. I wonder what are some other behaviors that people exhibit. Because again, remember, in order to change behaviors, in order to move from unconscious to conscious living, in order to be the driver, as we talked about, being the driver's seat of your life, in order to live your best life, in order to renew your mind and transform your life, you have to first become self-aware. You have to first recognize what your time is, right?
Yes.
And the time, remember, is thoughts, interactions, mindsets, and emotions. So we want to ask you again. Tell us, what are some of the interactions that you recognize in yourself and others as you mingling and going to these different events, whether they're family events, work events. What are some of the behaviors, or how do you see people behaving or interacting at these holiday activities? I think that would be pretty cool to see what your responses are. We just gave a few examples.
Right.
Clearly we don't get out much. Because it's like we only had a few. So in closing, for our introduction, the Access Rumor Time Conversations promises to be engaging,
practical,
relevant,
educational,
inspirational, and transformational. We look forward to you joining us each and every time our Access Rumor Time Conversation show is available. Look for it in your emails and on Facebook. Join our conversation, our extended conversation and community, the Access Rumor Time Conversations community that will be on Facebook as well. Thank you.
Thank you.